Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good of you to be with us on this, depending on where you might be, either Thursday evening or Friday morning. Hope you're all having a good week so far, as we're just tantalizingly close to the weekend now. As the slate suggests, you're watching live coverage of the NROL 57 mission, the latest batch of satellites that will head up to low Earth orbit in support of what the U.S.'s National Reconnaissance Office refers to as their proliferated architecture, a satellite constellation made up of what are believed to be Starshield satellites, a government variant of the Starlink satellite. Because of the nature of this constellation and, well, frankly, the nature of the NRO themselves, they don't often talk about in any great detail the operational capabilities of a constellation like this or how many satellites may be launching on this Falcon 9 rocket. Do know, of course, that the T0 for this mission currently tracking towards 1149 11:49 p.m. Pacific, 2:49 a.m. Eastern, 06:49 UTC. Here's a look at the Falcon 9 rocket at the pad. This is a still image. We should be getting actual live views of the Falcon 9 itself there at Vandenberg at Space Launch Complex 4 East, coming up here in about 17 minutes. There are a number of notable things about this launch tonight, which we will get to in just a sec. But first off, I want to thank the more than 1,200 of you who are staying up late or getting up early with us to see the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket from California. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, share the stream, allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast tonight. Our photographer team of Adam and Michael have this evening off, as this is a California-based launch. I also want to thank our moderators in the live chat who are helping us out tonight. A big thank you to Mark Otto and Clistia Lee. And if you do see any of the other mods cruise on in during the countdown, be sure to give them a big ol' hello. You can help out our mods make their job a little bit easier just by following the rules of the live chat here. We ask that you converse in English only in order to allow our moderators to fully understand what's going on and be able to respond accordingly. Also refrain from using all caps. Respectfully, do not go into overt politics. This is not the venue for that. There are plenty of other YouTube channels if you'd like to talk politics. And lastly, just be kind to your fellow viewers who are here in the live chat. Remember, tonight's launch could be the first for any of the folks that are here with us right now, and you want to treat them with the same courtesy that was extended to you the first time you were with us. I also see Astro Joe is with us today, one of our other wonderful moderators. And thanks to Astro Joe for gifting a Spaceflight Now membership, growing our community that much more. To our newest channel member, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com. access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments at the Cape. Also want to thank Stephen Frazier, marking 13 months with us as a channel member at the pad leader level. Says all the best to Spaceflight Now team for this launch. Thank you, sir. To add to that, of course, we are powered by a wonderful channel member community here on YouTube who make these live launch opportunities possible. So thanks to folks like Cumulus Granatus, MLG Pure, Red Sky, My Honey, Ninja Guy Dan, and many others. Channel membership comes with all those perks I previously mentioned. So if you'd like to become a member, you can click that join button just down beneath the video. Last but not least, if you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings on in the realm of space and spaceflight, you can follow the lead of Michelle Penland. Use the YouTube Super Chat feature. Not only will he be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, or just offer some nice words of encouragement, she'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now all the same, and that is always greatly appreciated. Now T-minus 22 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. At this point, SpaceX has pulled go for the start of prop load. They are in the midst of fueling their Falcon 9 rocket at the pad, which does lock them into that time you see there on your screen. Before we go ahead and reach our next milestone, let's go ahead and take a quick look here at the countdown timeline, the series of events that we're anticipating with a good fueling of the Falcon 9 rocket today. Step lively through the events that have already happened. Go for prop load was issued. Prop load began at the T-minus 35-minute mark with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene aboard the Falcon 9's first and second stages, and liquid oxygen aboard the Falcon 9's first stage. Just about 10 minutes ago, first stage cryogenic helium load began. Same was true on the second stage a few minutes after that. Helium was used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Most recently, at the T-minus 23-minute mark, second stage RP-1 loading will have concluded. Coming up next is the strong back chill down process. That's when SpaceX will begin to condition the feed lines, rather, at the pad prior to second stage liquid oxygen load. Had we eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point in the countdown, we'd see the so-called big vent that begins at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. Once that conditioning is done, second stage liquid oxygen loading will begin at the 16-minute mark. T-minus 7 minutes is the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster. That process involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, the strong back retract sequence gets underway. The clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back there at Space Launch Complex 4 East, will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and it'll stay in that position until liftoff. It will not move again like we see here in Florida. Once it does its initial recline, it stays in that position through liftoff. T-minus 3 minutes is when The first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true in the second stage about a minute afterwards, at which point the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 engines are healthy and ignite, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, coming up at 11:49 p.m. Pacific, 2:49 a.m. Eastern, 06:49 UTC, for just a little bit more than 19 minutes from now. T-minus 18 minutes and counting. At this point, the so-called big vent is nearing completion. Got about a minute left on that. Had a few folks asking about the trajectory for today's flight. A little bit of a difference from what we've seen from previous missions supporting the NRO's proliferated architecture. So let's get to that now. Talk a little trajectory. Falcon 9 first stage booster lifting off from Space Launch Complex 4 East. We're orienting this map looking from the north to the south, as the booster will fly in a southeasterly trajectory away from that launch pad. The reason we're orienting the map in this way is because, unlike the previous missions where the booster has landed on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, this go around there will be a return to landing site, or RTLS landing, with a touchdown at landing zone 4. We reached out to the NRO ahead of this mission launch to try and get a little more insight into what's allowing for an RTLS mission today. And unfortunately, because of, again, the nature of this mission and not wanting to disclose more than they're comfortable with, don't have a definitive answer on if the RTLS landing is, in fact, because of a reduction in the number of satellites that are on board this mission, or a different type of satellite that's being used as part of the constellation. Do know, though, that the NRO, as they're at the 16-minute mark and second stage lock zone is now beginning, they do have about a dozen missions that are planned over the course of 2025, with about half of them being flights for this constellation. They've already flown one of those so far earlier this year, and this will be the second along that path. The NRO also had a payload on board the most recent transporter mission. Couple points of note about this Falcon 9 launch as well. This will be SpaceX's 450th Falcon 9 launch to date, 33 of the year so far. This will also be a record-breaking turnaround for this first stage booster if all goes well. This is B1088. We'll talk a little bit more about its flight history here in just a second. SpaceX will also attempt to recover the payload fairings that are being used on this mission as well, and those will be scooped up under the support of one of the recovery vessels. They'll splash down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean first, under the support of steerable parachutes. Brought back into port, turn around for future missions. Before we go ahead and talk about the booster turnaround history, taking a look at what things are like there at Vandenberg Space Force Base in these overnight hours, approaching midnight there locally. Hazy conditions, but generally clear skies. What all that amounts to is that visibility near the pad may not be so hot, but as the rocket continues to climb, it should get a little bit better. So hopefully wherever you are watching from, you're not too sucked in with clouds, and you'll be able to see the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. If you are able to capture any photos or video of the flight tonight, we'd love to see them. You can go ahead and tag us. We're on most of the social channels. You can find us at Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook, and X. Now less than 13 minutes to go on the countdown timeline for this Falcon 9 rocket. I want to thank the more than 2,600 of you who are hanging out with us in these overnight hours. Appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, you could help some more people find this live coverage just by clicking the like button, sharing the stream. Always greatly appreciated. Taking a look at the live chat real quick, want to thank BDX for a $11.99 PLN super chat. Really appreciate that. Channel member and moderator Christy Lee has been with us for 18 months. Hard to believe it at the launch director level of channel membership. It says 18 months of fun. Thanks Spaceflight Now for providing the awesome community that I am so proud to be a part of. We are very glad that you're a part of it. Also want to thank Callistia for gifting 10 Spaceflight Now memberships. Welcome aboard to all of you. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Callistia in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Looks like it's Julie Judd's birthday. $2 super chat. Appreciate that, Julie. It says great birthday present for me. Always nice to have a Falcon 9 candle on your birthday. Josh King marking 29 months with us as a channel member. Glad to have you still with us, Josh. It says Spaceflight Now rocks. Appreciate the kind words. And welcome aboard to new channel member Emiliano Garcia, joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard. And a thanks to Shay Calandry for a $10 super chat as well. Thank you, Shay. Good to see you tonight. A little less than 11 minutes now to go before the liftoff of this Falcon 9, supporting the NROL 57 mission. I teased a moment ago the booster turnaround record for B1088. You might be thinking to yourselves, wait a minute, didn't we just see this booster fly? Well, you did just see this booster fly not too terribly long ago. Taking a quick look at the flight history for this booster. It began its missions late last year with the NROL 126 flight. This was another mission supporting the proliferated architecture for the National Reconnaissance Office. That particular mission was a blend of both Starlink and what are believed to be Starshield satellites. That was followed up by the Transporter 12 flight on January 14th with 131 small sats in tow. And then most recently had NASA's combo mission, a rideshare flight for NASA's Launch Services Program. That was SphereX and Punch that flew together. A total of 5 spacecraft in all, lifting off on March 12th of this year. And that leads us to NROL 57, target liftoff on March 21st, based off of the UTC time. Just want to take a quick note here of the booster turnaround time between the first two missions, 45 days, then 57 days, but then the record setting that's on tap for this launch, if it goes off in the next little under 9 minutes, just 9 days. This would set a booster turnaround time record, beating the previous one that was set by B1080, which was about 13 and a half days in between the launches of Starlink 6-69 and 12-1 in November of last year. Now 8 minutes and counting. Less than a minute to go ahead of the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines. We should be getting views momentarily of the Falcon 9 rocket itself, as well as hopefully mission audio. We're now just about 7.5 minutes away from liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. SpaceX taking a little trip down memory lane, looking at the flight of Falcon 1. We're coming up on engine chill with Falcon 9 first stage. SpaceX is going to be talking about the Falcon 9 rocket. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Start from the top and work our way to the bottom. Payload fairings are made up of a carbon composite material standing 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall and 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Just beneath the payload fairings are the second stage. Reason they're showing this booster landing video is, of course, there's going to be an RTLS landing or return to landing site landing. This is file video from SpaceX from previous landing out at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. These two pads I'll make a note of here. This is Space Launch Complex 13 or Slick 13. Over the course of this year, it will be turned over from SpaceX and begin to be occupied by a pair of companies, one called Via Space, which is based in Cocoa, Florida, about 20 miles away from the Kennedy Space Center, and Phantom Space. SpaceX is exploring options and getting environmental approval to establish landing zones at both Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center and Slick 40. SpaceX commentators note that the vehicle is healthy and that the range is ready to support. They're working no issues right now as we approach the 5-minute mark. Got confirmation of pressurization for strong back retract. Also heard confirmation that first stage kerosene tank is full. Unsurprisingly, given the nature of this launch and the previous mission supporting the NRO's proliferated architecture, there will not be any second stage views shown on this mission today. You see those clamp arms now opening up. The strong back will soon recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. There goes the strong back. Little less than 4 minutes to go. Here, confirmation of stage 1 LOX load being complete. Waiting for a confirmation on the second stage.
There you see a great view of those white clouds.
Stage 2, LOX load complete.
And with that call out, the Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Shortly, we'll be seeing the ground gas closeouts. That's the additional venting that you're seeing here. They're clearing the liquid oxygen from the lines.
Start up.
With that call, we're now just listening for the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch.
Launch director is go for launch.
And with that go for launch call, we're just about 30 seconds away from the liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Going to go ahead and listen into these final 30 seconds. We'll be back with some additional commentary on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go NROL 57.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
L1D chamber pressure is nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Slick 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. In case you're just joining us, these awesome ascent views are of the NROL 57 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office. And we had an on-time liftoff tonight at 11:49 p.m. and are getting good news from Mission Control that power and telemetry are looking good on board the vehicle.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
And the Falcon 9 is now moving faster than the speed of sound. Coming up next, the vehicle will be passing through Max Q, which is the point in the mission profile.
Max Q.
Right on schedule. The vehicle has experienced the greatest amount of aerodynamic pressure that it will see on ascent. Now coming up next, we'll have several events happening in quick succession, starting with main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, second engine start 1, and then our boost back burn. Main engine cutoff, or MECO for short, is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage sep, when the first
chill has started
and second stages will separate from each other. We also heard that call out from Mission Control that we're chilling our second stage engine in preparation for startup. The MVAC engine on the second stage will light for the first time during second engine start 1, which we'll hear called out as SES1. This engine burn will last for several minutes and propel the second stage and the payload to their intended orbit. Our boost back burn will assist the first stage in returning to its recovery location at Landing Zone 4, also at Vandenberg Space Force Base. In addition to these major events, the fairing halves will separate about 30 seconds after SES1. So keep an eye out for all of those events coming up here in just a couple of seconds. But as a reminder, we won't have...
Main engine cut off.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
We've had confirmation now of MECO, stage separation, and boost back burn startup, and are getting incredible views from our tracking camera right now. Now, as a reminder, we're not showing any views of the Falcon 9 second stage or payload today at the request of our customer. We are...
A little more than 3 minutes into flight, the payload fairing halves have been deployed. SpaceX commentators say that one of the fairing halves that are flying today is flying for a 17th time. The other is 4. The recovery vessel Go Beyond will scoop those up out of the Pacific Ocean. As you can see on the screen, the boost back burn has completed. A little more than 3.5 minutes into flight. The next milestone that we're looking for here is coming up just before the 6-minute mark. And the first stage entry burn will begin. That's when SpaceX will use 3 of its Merlin 1D engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage to dramatically slow the vehicle down. A look inside Mission Control there at SpaceX facilities in Hawthorne, California, where they have support for this mission tonight. Still have about 3 minutes before the planned touchdown of the first stage booster B-1088 at the landing site, landing zone 4. But with a good liftoff right on schedule, this does mark the turnaround record that we alluded to. 9 days for this booster from liftoff to liftoff. And while this is certainly a tight turnaround for landing zone 4 following the touchdown with the Transporter 13 launch coming on March 15th, the time between Transporter 13 and NROL 57 is about 6 days. Meanwhile, the time between the SphereX and Punch mission and Transporter 13 is just a matter of 3 days. Now 6 minutes into flight. That entry burn now getting underway. This entry burn lasts just about 16 seconds or so. With the conclusion of that entry burn, we are now looking forward to the start of the landing burn. Just one of the engines at the center of the first stage booster. I should kick on just about T plus 7 minutes and 11 seconds. Also heard that the flight termination system, or the FTS, has been safed on the first stage, no longer needed at this point in the flight. Coming up on the start of the landing burn.
Stage 1 landing burn.
This is the final
Stage 1
burn.
landing lift deployed. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And some really nice tracking there with what looks like an infrared camera. With a good touchdown, this was the conclusion of the 4th launch to space and back for this particular first stage booster. And because SpaceX is not showing any second stage views, they're going to be halting their coverage here in just a second. And with that good turnaround record in the books, a good liftoff and landing of the first stage, B-1088. Going to go ahead and turn to our mission stats as they currently stand here in a moment. Also want to shout out Joe Michella for sharing his photo of the Falcon 9 as it made its flight, checking in from the Los Angeles area. If you did happen to catch the Falcon 9, although it says there's a little bit of coastal fog that was slightly obscuring the view, but love to see what you saw as the Falcon 9 rocket made its journey from Vandenberg Space Force Base. Be sure to share that with us on either X, Facebook, Blue Sky, or Threads. Before we go ahead and turn to our mission stats as they currently stand, I want to thank a few folks for their support with this launch coverage tonight. Channel member I Am Lita with a $5 super chat. It says, awesome to be here with you all again. Thanks for all you do that allows us to share love of launches safely. Thank you for the kind words, Lita. Good to see you this evening. The Kaiser 2023 with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Kaiser, who says, mission looking like a go right now. This obviously set before liftoff. Love the channel. We'll bust out my drone from Orange County, California to get some footage. Hopefully that all went well. Love to see what you're able to see from your drone tonight. Hopefully flying a safe distance, of course, away from all the action. Thanks as well to Felix JV101 with a $5 super chat saying, tuning in from NOLA. Godspeed. New Orleans for those unfamiliar. Michael Vasquez with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Michael. And a $2 super chat to follow. Appreciate that support tonight. And thanks to Elizabeth Ellie Estrada for your $2 super chat as well. Thanks for the support tonight, Ellie. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at the mission stats that they currently stand with a good liftoff and landing of B-1088. That puts its fourth flight in the books. This was the 450th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 33rd of the year so far. This is SpaceX's 392nd Falcon booster reflight with a launch of a booster that has flown at least once. No Falcon Heavy missions yet, so the orbital launch count remains the same as the Falcon 9. This was the 140th orbital launch within the last 365 days. The 116th orbital flight from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 205th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Moving on to some recovery stats, this was the 26th landing at Landing Zone 4. Marked the 86th landing for SpaceX, and the 421st Falcon booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 10th orbital launch from the Golden State so far. Looking for the flight of Firefly Aerospace's Alpha rocket. Believe they're targeting middle of next week now. Wait for additional comments from the company. Tonight's launch was the 34th orbital flight from U.S. soil. It marked the 38th orbital launch from a U.S. rocket company, and the 57th orbital flight from around the world. So far, no mishaps to speak of, knock on wood. Here's where the pie chart now currently stands. Also hoping to add a new country to that pie chart, hopefully sometime in the fairly near future, as ESAR Aerospace is looking for its inaugural flight of its Spectrum rocket from the Andøya spaceport in Norway. Its launch window opened up on March 20th. However, they have not narrowed that down to exactly when they are targeting the liftoff of their Spectrum two-stage rocket. Keep your eyes peeled for that. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wind down our coverage. Maybe catch a few more Z's before we fully embrace the fact that it is Friday now. Want to thank a couple folks for hitting the buzzer there with the super chat. Our thanks to Cotton Candy Kayak, it's a fun name, saying the $5 super chat, who says, I wasn't fast enough for photos, but the launch was spectacular. Thanks for the great coverage. The good news there is there will always be more launches from Vandenberg, so you've got plenty of chances to try again. And Karen Fry with the $5 super chat as well. Thank you so much, Karen. Want to thank our channel member community for making this launch coverage possible. Big tip of the cap to our wonderful moderators in the live chat, Aussie Space Girl, Mark Otto, Astro Joe, and Callistia Lee. Appreciate all of you for helping out today. Thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast. And most importantly, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. Remember, you can always catch up with the latest launch that's happening here in the U.S. or elsewhere around the world just by heading over to our website, spaceflightnow.com. Click on the launch schedule tab. That is updated regularly to provide you with the most up-to-date information that we can provide you on orbital flights around the world. Look forward to joining you back here on the next one. And until then, my friends, remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time. And until then, bye-bye.